All right, Libras, welcome. We're going to talk about the eclipse happening in Pisces and also a little bit in Aries on September 18th. Got an interesting one for you. Libra readings are always a little bit complicated because in order to do one of these readings, you place a sign on the ascendant right here, which basically flips the entire chart. So the first house is usually ruled by Aries, and then the seventh house is ruled by Libra. So it's flipped in the Libra chart. So it's backwards, So now we have Libra in the first house and Aries in the seventh house, and it's like that all the way around the chart, you know. So the second house is ruled by Taurus, eighth house is ruled by Scorpio, but you have it flipped. So I think this might, I know Libras can sometimes get a reputation for being indecisive, and I think this might be part of why. It's because the whole thing is flipped when you look at Libra. So there's always like this balance of different energies happening, and for you during this eclipse, I think you're going to start to find that you're getting tired of always being the one to kind of have to compromise and go along with someone else's thing. But also there's a little bit of hesitation about being really assertive and doing things your way, because you do really value relationships quite a lot. Your one-on-one relationships are kind of the most important things to you. But you may start to find, or maybe you've already been finding, that there have been some people who kind of slip in there into your life and use your sort of your willingness to compromise and kind of find a balance in things, to where maybe you over compromise to where things become unbalanced in favor of the other person. And I think you're just kind of getting this sense of really being tired of always having to be the one to go along with everybody else's thing, but also a hesitation to, it's like maybe you don't really know exactly what it is you really want to do, but you know that you're tired of doing what everybody else wants you to do. And I think this is becoming more and more apparent to the people around you, with Mars in the 10th house here. 10th house really being about public appearance, not appearance like physical appearance, but like how you're seen by the public, as well as your career. Excuse me. And with Mars up there, it's like people can tell that you're starting to get a little frustrated. And even if you think you're hiding it, you might not be hiding it as well as you think. And why should you? You shouldn't have to hide your frustrations. If you're feeling frustrated by people sort of kind of taking advantage and kind of overstepping their bounds because you have maybe set the stage in certain relationships where you really want to please this person. You like to make people feel good. You make people feel loved and appreciated and special. But then when that goes too far, they might start to kind of get a big head about it. And then they start to become kind of overly dominant in these relationships. And this doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It could be, definitely could be, since the seventh house is a strong presence here in this reading, with the North Node here in the seventh house, along with Chiron here. So, but it could be anything. I mean, it could be friends, could be family, could be work, could be love. So, you just have to look at your own situation and see where this might be showing up, or maybe it's showing up in all of the above, because the sun being in Libra in this, or sorry, I keep saying the wrong signs. The sun being in Virgo in this third decanate, that really does kind of suggest that what we're dealing with here is a long-standing pattern, something that's really been with you for a long time, so long that it just feels normal, and then to break that pattern feels kind of awkward and weird and uncomfortable, because you're sort of stepping into the unknown. But ultimately, it ends up being good for you. And with Ceres down here in your fourth house, Ceres being the asteroid that represents kind of almost, it's things that grow a little too slowly. It's kind of stunted growth, like kind of the late bloomer of the chart. In your fourth house here, it's like you don't get enough time to really work on yourself and your own emotional worlds to kind of, and time to just kind of sit back and just be you, and instead of always having to explore what everybody else is doing or the people in your life are doing. Maybe you listen to your music, it's fine, and then you get used to that so much that you don't really know what you want to listen to anymore, just as a smaller example. But Libra is associated with music, so I mean that kind of fits. And the more you allow this, the longer you allow this to go on without speaking up about it, and kind of maybe telling some people to back off a little bit. You don't have to be brutal about it, or maybe in some cases you might have to be a little brutal about it if they resist and they don't respect your desire for kind of independence and some time for yourself to really kind of start to address, what do you really want? What is it that you really want, Libra? Beyond relationships, beyond love and affection and all that kind of stuff. Uh, you guys do it better than anyone else. You are the sign of love and relationships, and you guys tend to be very, Libras are often very attractive as well, and so it's easy for you guys to get really entangled in relationships. And maybe, I could see Libras being the type of person where like maybe you've never been single for more than a few months at a time. And that's not universal. That could apply to some people, but the general gist of not really getting to spend enough time on you to the point that you kind of start to lose your sense of identity. It's like you just don't really feel like maybe you just don't really know who you are when you're on your own. And the more you can do, you can build that sort of foundation of your sense of self when you're alone, the healthier your relationships are going to be, because then you're less inclined to overcompromise and kind of always give them their way and give yourself the short end of the stick for the sake of keeping them happy. And it keeps from the resentment from building up. But I really think that it's getting to where people can see it, and I think you're starting to see it as well. And if you can address this head on before the actual time of the eclipse, because the eclipses are big energy. They tend to bring long-standing patterns of greater cycles to a head. And if you wait until the universe forces you to address it, it's going to come and clobber you over the head with the situation. But if you can address it head on and kind of show the universe that like you get it and you're trying to move in the direction of the universe wants with the North Node, which the North Node really represents the kind of the direction that life and the universe is kind of pushing you in. Almost as if the universe is intelligent and it's conspiring to teach you lessons. Almost, right? And like I said before, so even though this is in the 7th house, which is about relationships, since you have Aries in the 7th house, it's about being independent within relationships. So it's not just about being alone. It's about being with people while maintaining that strong sense of who you are. And so if you can do that in whatever way you need to, the lessons will be less harsh. It lets up. And often when you show that you've really got it, that you understand what's going on, what the universe is trying to get you to do, some kind of reward usually shows up unexpectedly, and it can sometimes really blow your mind. I mean, maybe we've all had days where it's almost like it feels like everything is orchestrated specifically just to piss you off and get in your way and make you frustrated. Well, the universe can do the exact opposite. It can make your life into a flowing dream of just unbelievable good luck, and it can and this tends to happen most when you're going with the flow of things, when you're no longer resisting what the universe is trying to teach you because it might be a little uncomfortable. But I feel like the Sun and the Virgo back here, it's like you're just that you're not speaking up about this. I think you're letting this kind of happen. You're letting people maybe kind of walk, maybe not completely, depending on the person, but they might be kind of walking all over you. And you may have set the stage for that without realizing it in the past, by the way that the relationship started. The way relationships start tends to kind of show you how they might end. And so it could be, in some cases, that by doing this, you kind of shock whoever these people are that are using you as a support role, and then kind of just expecting you to always be there for them, expecting you to always be that backup support role in their life. And then suddenly they find you decide that you don't want to do that all the time. Maybe you don't want to completely pull away, but you just start kind of taking a more independent stance. And then all of a sudden they freak out because turns out they only want people who are just going to throw their own lives away for their sake to support them in their direction. So in some cases, it could be that these people could decide they could kind of freak out and not want, and could cause certain relationships to kind of blow up. But if that happens, it means that the foundation of that relationship was in you being taken advantage of. And if they go away, then great. That means no more being taken advantage of anymore. But there's always this, you have to be willing to face the idea that maybe, this attachment to certain relationships and people, even when it's not necessarily good for you, we can sometimes get really attached to people and then tolerate a lot of bad behavior. And for some of you, it might not be super extreme. This could be a little more subtle, and it doesn't have to be a big blow up kind of thing, and maybe you're with somebody really cool, and they understand and they're willing to kind of and maybe they'll be happy for you. You know, they should be happy for you. Uh, and also by kind of biting your tongue and not speaking up about certain things, you might actually be kind of missing out on one of your greatest strengths. You know, Pallas here, Pallas, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce it, but it's an asteroid that represents your unique intelligence, your unique skills. And being in the third house in Sagittarius, I think you might actually be a very effective communicator, maybe extremely effective. Um, and by, you know, you might be missing out on some of your greatest strengths by remaining in the background, by keeping quiet, by just kind of, you know, being the support role all the time. And it's not that you can't ever do that. Maybe you enjoy being the support role for certain people, but again, there needs to be balance so that you don't get taken advantage of and end up kind of drawing the short straw every time, giving yourself the short end of the stick, or whatever, you know, metaphor for selling yourself short you want to apply there. You know, in Libra, with Jupiter in your ninth house, it's like, you know, Jupiter moves pretty slowly, so you've been going through a spiritual awakening, for lack of a better term, and you're becoming more and more aware and well versed in these more esoteric kinds of things like astrology, tarot, magic, meditation, Kabbalah, whatever you might be into, or whatever form of spirituality that you're most interested in. You know, maybe Jupiter in Gemini in the ninth house, you might enjoy reading some books about these types of more esoteric, hidden, metaphysical side of things. And I think that you may find, again, you know, this is like one of your greatest strengths in Sagittarius. It's really like the house of or the sign of learning, among many other things. But it's really all about higher learning and studying things like, you know, uh, meditation or Buddhism or magic or Kabbalah or astrology or any of these kinds of esoterics, these traditions, these spiritual traditions. The more you explore those, I think you might get more and more and more interested in those things and find that you can bring a unique way of expressing these things to people. You know, you're very good at talking to people on their level, and you might find that you could at some point be you could be like a teacher in a sense. Um, because you're able to explain abstract things and things that are kind of weird and nebulous and hard to understand and maybe symbolic, and you're able to take those things and put them into clear terms that people can understand. Um, and I think, let me just look at this, see if there's anything else. Okay, so I haven't actually really talked much about the moon, and this is a lunar eclipse, so maybe it'd be good to talk about that a little bit. So the moon being at the time of the actual official eclipse, it's in Pisces, but very shortly after that, it moves into Aries because it's happening right at the very, very end of Pisces. Actually, one second here. I think I might have looked at this wrong. Let me pause this video. Okay, no, I was right. I got a little confused because I saw this little number 1 here, not realizing that that was an Aries. So I got a little turned around. But anyways, being conjunct Neptune, which is in retrograde right now, this is a demystifying kind of thing. There's like things that used to have a bit of a fog and maybe a little bit of a fantasy sort of feeling around them, where maybe you put the rose-colored glasses on in certain places and ignore certain red flags. That kind of draws back, and it becomes things start to become very clear. And so this happening in your 6th house, for some of you, even though I've been saying the word relationship a lot, this could be showing up in your work life. Or just in your daily routines, you know, whatever it is that you spend a lot of time doing every day, this sort of pattern may be showing up here, where there's too much compromise. There's not enough doing what you want to do, developing your own foundation and sense of self. And then, you know, there's a redrawing of certain boundaries in your daily life and a demystifying and just really kind of seeing things more clearly. And it could be, for some people, I get the sense that for many people, it could be that you just don't know what your thing is. You know, people are, you know, you see other people who are like, they're into music and they're really into music. That's their thing. Or they're into writing and they're really into writing and that's their thing. Or into astrology like myself and they're really into that and that's really their thing. But you're just like, well, what's my thing? I don't really know. And I don't really, it's hard to figure that out when there's all these other influences around me and people kind of wanting me to kind of be there for them. What do I want to do? Um, so I think you're going to start really, if you haven't already, you're going to start becoming more clear about that. Like what is your thing? What is it that you like to spend your time on? What do you want to work on long term over time to kind of where you kind of improve your skills and get better and better at a thing? Um, I just get the sense if you've spent a lot of time, if your whole life is kind of revolved around relationships and partners, I think you're kind of getting tired of that. And not that you have to just be single, like I said, it's just the over compromising and kind of blending your life with another person and then them kind of taking the reins and you just being going along for the ride. That I think will come to an end, depending on the person, of course, and how willing you are to kind of stand to put those boundaries up and tell some people that you need some space to yourself. Um, Saturn retrograde in that sixth house, that can sometimes be taking on too much at work. Maybe you spend too much time working to avoid this kind of lack of knowing what it is you really want to do with yourself on your free time. There can, Saturn retrograde in the sixth house can definitely bring a bit of workaholism for some people. Anyways, I think you kind of get the gist of what we're getting at here. So I think I'll end the video here. So thanks for watching. If you want a private reading, info's down below. Like, comment, subscribe. All the interaction you give this channel improves it feeds the algorithm and makes my videos get in front of other people. And this is a brand new channel, so any help I can get in that department is greatly appreciated. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon. Take care.